We're ready to roll. We're a little behind this morning, but it's a good thing. Good Sunday in that way. If you plan on being a part of our, if you plan on being a part of our second service, you may not obviously know this unless you've talked with somebody. We had baptism this morning. Very happy about that. One of our young people, the Greasons are new members here at Center Chapel. At Center Chapel. Identified by my surroundings. Yeah, Center Chapel. And by the way, I haven't seen you people lately. It's good to have you back. But a great, their son Luke, I believe, their son Luke, wonderful young man, baptized this morning. We're so happy about that. Here comes Granddad in the room as we speak. Pretty good Sunday, don't you think? Yeah, that's right. There you go. That's right. So we're in Ecclesiastes. Last week we did some introductory stuff. We need to jump into the book a little bit today, and so we will do that. So let me just sort of summarize something that we dealt with last week and will be important to remember as we continue to go through things. This will surface periodically here and there. Everyone searches for a purpose at some point. Doesn't matter, male, female, younger, older, what particular family background may be, spiritually or just more generically speaking, family background. Everyone is searching at some point in time. It may be something a lot of people know about. It may be something they struggle through for a while. But they're searching for purpose in some respect, in some way, at some point in their life. And that, we understand, often changes at midlife, or it feels that it should, maybe. And it can be quite difficult. Now, why is that? Give me some whys about why people struggle for purpose. Doesn't have to be at midlife. And the same, if we hear midlife crisis, why I threw that in. Why do people struggle with purpose? Okay, it can be hard because of the reflection it demands, which then might lead you to have to accept some things. What might I have to accept that is difficult? Circumstances I find myself in. The reality of my circumstances. What inside that could it be additionally difficult? Where I am on the scale of things, which could say, how much time do I have to turn this around? What else? Responsibility. How did I get here? The hard look itself, the hard look in the mirror, the honesty it requires to say, why am I in the situation I'm in? Now, I may be in a situation that is difficult, and I'm searching for purpose or renewal in that purpose, newness of purpose. It may, and there's nothing painful as to why I'm there. It just could be something that's very human nature, not right or wrong, certainly not sinful, not weakness, not nobody's ever done this but me to get to this point, that kind of thing. It may just be natural, but it could be I have to accept something painful. Like somebody says, well, I'm 48, everybody's passed me by, all my peers have passed me by. Why? Well, I've not done much growing up. Yeah. Maybe somebody has to accept that. I've just not done much growing up yet. I'm still kind of maturity-wise where I was at 22 coming out of college. Yeah, that's okay. So, reflection, honesty. What about other people? Do other people influence our life out of our control? Do other people influence our life in ways that could demand a significant change in our life? Yeah. Sometimes other people, not of our own doing, not of our own choosing, but other people. So all of this may not be inherently wrong, but it's inherently common to our, if we live long enough, at some point in time, purpose. Well, Ecclesiastes is well meant. This is the way I chose to say it. Ecclesiastes is well meant for those who may have come to the point of asking, is this all there is? Now, there's a part of Ecclesiastes of which we referenced last week that can become almost overwhelming. And almost, could it be somewhat depressing? As this constant theme throughout the book that says, if we're not reading it in context, if we're reading it too quickly, if we're not reading it prayerfully, really studying it. And by the way, when you read Scripture for the purpose of really getting everything that's there to be had, everything God intended, when you read Scripture with the purpose of really getting everything that can be had out of that and what God intended from the message there, in the message there, pray before you do it. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because I don't want, in the honesty of everybody in the room, anybody to be put on the spot in any awkward way. So I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but do you pray before you study? I'm not. You don't have to pray for 90 minutes, okay? You know, we're not talking. But I'm just asking. Do you ask God's blessings on what you're about to study? Why wouldn't I? I need, because I know I need to get this right. I need to see it right, hear it right, digest it right, apply it right. So personally, and an old man told me this years ago. Years ago. I don't even remember. It's probably 30 plus years ago. An old man said, I pray before I study and I pray after I study. I need to see what I need to see, digest as it, and then I need to apply appropriately. So you got the prayer, one prayer on the front side, one prayer on the back side. So as a side road, as you see all of this unfolding with this constant message, because you're going to see it constantly throughout the book. If you're not aware of the context, the full context, and the why it continuously comes back in so many different ways to one central idea, which is vanity. Not vanity. Vanity. In vain, useless, that sort of thing. Then you may not understand why in the world is this in Scripture. All right. The theme of the book really is confirming the futility of life. You're like, wait a minute. What? We believe in a God who gave us this life, who gave us the opportunity for this life, who created all things, placed us in it. How can God create something futile? Well, understand what we're talking about eventually, and this is where he puts the cap on this, the cherry on top, in chapter 12 to close it out. What's the whole duty of man?
Fear God.
Fear God and keep His commandments. For this, in all this getting up to chapter 12, to close out, so what have we said? Hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Here is the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So let me go back to what I said theme, confirming the futility of life. What we're going to see is the futility of life without God. The futility of life without God. And those two things, futility of life versus futility of life without God, those are two different things. And we'll begin to see this. Well, he starts out off, in verse 2 right here, vanity of vanities. In the Hebrew, the word is hebel. And he uses the term which means, there's a couple of different ways, but this word in the Hebrew means useless, empty, futile. That's the idea in some other words we could go to. In fact, examples in Ecclesiastes about this futility, where he puts it in other wording, is this. You'll see striving after the wind. In your most translations, you'll see something like this. Striving after the wind. Here's another quote. Nothing new under the sun. Here's another one. No profit under the sun. Grievous task. This too is futility. And all of these phrases that run throughout the book are meant to amplify, come back to one central core, one central theme, the futility of life without God. Well, we need to get to some passages, and I'm going to need some interaction here with in terms of your reading, and we've got a lot to get to by example, so I'm going to need a lot of reader volunteers, okay? So, chapter 1, verse 2, I just read. Chapter 12, verse 8, all right? I tell you what, I'm going to come back to that one. Now, chapter 1, verse 14, who's got it? Who's going to get it for me? All right. And stay put there for a second. Chapter 2, verse 17. All right. Mark, go ahead. Hey, Don, in just a minute, chapter 2, 1 and 2. And then let me pause one more and then we'll pause. Chapter 7, verse 2. Okay, thank you, David. David, congratulations. All right. Chapter 1, verse 14 and 2:17. We'll read those back to back. 1:14.
I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and indeed all is vanity and grasping for the wind.
So I hated life for the work which had been done under the sun was grievous to me, because everything is futility and striving after the wind.
The pessimism about life that seems to jump off the page even at the start of the book here, and again runs through it, is an admission that life without God is vain no matter how you look at it. He starts with, the reason I highlighted these two passages is the activities of man. Both of these passages deal with how futile the activities of man are in general. Just all the activities, all the very different activities of man are. Chapter 2, verse 1 and 2.
Said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure, enjoy yourself. But behold, this is also him. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what you.
And then chapter 7 and verse 2.
It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, for death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart.
Now we've got 4 passages of Scripture, just 4, in a whole book already, and we hadn't touched the hem of the garment, that say human activity is futile and that human joy is futile. The first 2 dealt with just human activity. These 2 are just samples, there's more. But that even human joy ultimately winds up futile, again, without God. Chapter 2, verse 15, who's going to get that? Thank you. And chapter 2, 22 and 23. Who's going to get that? Chris, thank you. All right, let's read those. Oh, let's get one more. Chapter 3, verse 19. Don, thank you. Okay. So 2:15, I'll make a comment after that. Then 2:22 and 23, I'll make a comment after that. Then 3:19. All right, 2:15.
Why then, if I've been so very wise, that this also is vanity.
This also is vanity. What's this? If you look at verse 15, what's the this? He's pointing to vanity, to worthlessness. Wisdom. The pursuit of wisdom. Now, again, understand, the Bible's not in contradiction here when the book of Proverbs, which may be the same author, although I mentioned a little bit last week about that. Not necessarily. But if so, it wouldn't matter. You've got 2 different authors. Wait a minute. One talks about the pursuit of wisdom so often. The book of Proverbs talks about pursuit of wisdom. And then he says, well, which wisdom? What wisdom? Whose wisdom? That sort of thing. And what's the ultimate end of the pursuit of that kind of wisdom? But chapter 2, verse 15 seems to smack at that idea. 2:22 and 23. Human industry, we might say. Human industry is sort of knocked here as eventually futile. Well, wait a minute. Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways and be what? Wise. Okay? The ant is praised for its industriousness. And obviously when we watch a picture's worth 1,000 words, you just look at a bunch of ants and their activity in some place in man. Okay? They know their purpose. They know their purpose. That's obvious. But being human, being a human, being a human comes to vanity. He says, what's this? She has a background in veterinary medicine. Right. Well, they may be. Jana may say that her dog is. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what's the difference? In verse Don just read, you will, he's called, as he says. Well, let's look at we need to assign chapter 4. Let's look at chapter 4, verse 4, and then verse 7 and 8. The same guy can do this reading, or lady, either way. 4, 4, and then 7 and 8. 4, 4, and 4, 7, and 8. Who's going to get that? Thank you, Wes. 5, chapter 5, verse 10. We'll go over here to the left. Hannah, thank you. Chapter 5, verse 10. And then I'm going to jump for a second. Luke 12, verse 15. Thank you, David. All right, let's read these. 4, 4, and then 7 and 8, all at once.
Again I saw that for all toil and every skillful work of man is envied by his neighbor. This also is vanity, grasping for the wind. 7 and 8. Then I returned and I saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone without companion. He is neither son nor brother, yet there is no end to all his labors, nor is his eye satisfied with riches. But he never asks, for whom do I toil and deprive myself of good? This also is vanity and great misfortune.
Fruits of labor. I mean, we're barely touching, as I said a moment ago, the hem of the garment in categories. We've got more to come even just this morning. Categories that he's throwing onto the bulletin board of futility. All these things are futile. Maybe you have been to some sort of business training session, some meeting you had to attend. They had, breakout sessions, as they call them, and they've got boards and they've got team building activities and all these things. And you have, we had one of these situations, which is a yearly thing with the elders and the ministry staff here. We had our upcoming planning session for the coming year. Usually late October to the first couple of days of November. So we just went through that. And one of our activities there, we had various boards, and under each thing, if you had any particular thought on any number of these things, you could go and you could write it on a Post-it note. Everybody had their own stack, and you could go stick it on that one. We want to see what's important to the whole room here, okay? And then you go back and look, and it's clear how many. This one over here, this thing, maybe they had 2 Post-it notes on it. This one over here had 16. or something like that. You know, this one over here had 8, so on and so on. Okay, you get that kind of thing. Imagine walking by a board here. It's so far early into the book now. We're already walking by a board that's got, and just wait. All going on the board of futility. And you kind of walk by them all and you go, whoa, that's a statement. You know, this is obvious. We're saying something here. And he's saying something here. Fruits of labor. Well, wait a minute. We labor. Okay? Let's say, we labor when we're not employed. Okay? But let's just consider employment for a second, for example. Why do I labor? Okay, because Janet's not going to let me sit at home. But why else do I labor? Who's at home? I got other people, right? There's 3 other people in that house and the dog. There's other people in that house. And what do they, this family has to eat. And this family has to be able to pay to go to the doctor. And this family has to, right? Why is he knocking on fruits of labor? Being worthless? Well, again, context of what is the whole duty of man. The whole book is saying, no, not even that. I learned no, not even. And by the way, if this is solid, Nano, I like that one. Yeah, but this is what was and what he would have understood and how it could have been viewed coming from him if him. It's true nonetheless, but for example, not to put you on the spot, David, so we're not looking for specifics, but I just want to hear what I think I already know his answer is going to be just from an affirmative, that's affirmative or no. Have you seen some in your training prior to your practice, when you were having to school yourself before a practice, did they show you some nasty, awful looking stuff? So if David tells you guys, wear sunscreen. It's not my family. I played outside my whole life growing up. Didn't we? Got sunburned all the time, didn't we? You know, that sort of thing. I'm good. I expect you to say that. I understand your practice has to say that. You have to say that. It's kind of where your bread is buttered. It's where you're... No, wait a minute. He can go, okay, well then come by the office at the close of business day. I want to show you some stuff. And he got out files and pictures, and you'd be like, ooh. Anybody ever watch Dr. Pimple Popper? We've got We've got a few that have said yes, but one is really proud that she has. Teresa went, I have watched Dr. Pimple Popper. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so David can show you some stuff and go, no, you don't want to go there. Well, why not? Well, here's my proof, and then here, and how about that one? Ooh, you know. You see what I'm saying? This is the reality of who's writing this most likely. And this is his background. We're just gotten into several things, but somebody who's had it all, had all this, understood all this from a human standpoint of having something at his disposal in his hands, and he's saying this perhaps. Chapter 5, verse 10, Hannah.
He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, not he who loves wealth with his income. That also is vanity.
Luke 12:15.
Then he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions.
I don't know if you all have ever done this or not, but if you research this type of thing, I don't know if I'll word it correctly, but just some of the history has recorded this for us. The last years, and I don't mean the last 12 months or whatever, but it could have been, but even the latter portion just as a section of their life, which may be multiple years, of some of the world's wealthiest people or famous people, which oftentimes breeds the other. Sometimes that's both then, but not necessarily. Some of the most renowned around the world, and then certainly in our country itself, for fame and fortune. And names that you just kind of, you know, these people that are one-name people. Name me a one-name person. And everybody, you don't have to say John Smith. Now, you can't say John because there's a few of those around. But give me a one-name person. Bezos, yeah. Gates, Share. We got a Share mention in Sunday school class now. Who else? Beyonce. All right. Mom, you know Beyonce, right? Okay, Prince. Ichiro. Well, and yeah, in your business, that's right. Ichiro. Yeah, y'all. I mean, okay. So when you get to be a one-name person, it's the joke or really believe it. A one-name person, they've arrived. They've had it all. If you have one name, you probably are seen by the world as having it all because it's usually attached to wealth, right? When you get to chapter 5, verse 10, Luke 12:15, he's dealing with the fruits of labor. And are you still open to that, Hannah? One more time on your verse.
Not he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity.
Now, I could ask, do you believe that? And in a Sunday school class, most people are going to say, if they feel like, if we went, like they're polling a jury, Mr. Henderson, do you believe that? Ms. Henderson, do you believe it? So say you, so say you. Is this your verdict? Is it, how they do? And then in a Sunday school class, everybody feels like they got to say yes to this question. Do you believe that? Believe what? What she just said. That money is not going to satisfy. Money by itself inherently is not going to satisfy. Do you believe that? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay, we're going to say that, but I'm serious. Do you believe that? I mean, we need to ask that in the church. Do you believe that? Okay, Jesus repeats it in the Gospels, the same idea. And if you study the people that are one-name people, some of them were, the most famous, wealthy, accomplished in their fields, and study how the last years of their life went. And I'm not talking about from physical illness. Well, he was doing so. He was at the top of his career, top of his game, top of his industry, whatever, and then he was struck with, years decades and decades ago, polio or something. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the paranoia, the relationship destruction, the misery. You can research this, and some of the most accomplished, wealthy, that's my goal people were the most miserable people on earth. This is borne out in society. Chapter 5, Hannah, you were already there. Can you go verse 7 now? Sorry.
For when dreams increase and words grow many, there is vanity. God is not fear.
So now we've got like having vision, having plans, if you will, dreams, much dreaming, many words. He's hitting on everything. This one is going to be a need for Ecclesiastes 6:12, somebody. Wes, thank you, 6:12. And then somebody in James 4:14. James 4:14, the New Testament. Don, thank you. Hey, Daryl. Ecclesiastes 7:15. And let me get one more. 9:9. Over here on the left. 9:9. Thank you. 9:9. All right. All right, let's do 6:12 and James 4:14 back to back.
6:12. For who knows what is good for a man in life, all the days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow. Who can tell a man what will happen after him under the sun?
Yeah, you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time.
Well, now he's got a category basically saying the few days of life. Hey, life's not long anyway. It's a mist, it's a vapor. Says it here in Ecclesiastes 6, repeated in James 4, and other places in Scripture would essentially say the same thing, but this is a literal say thing with the actual chosen words or spoken words. So now we're hitting on futility. What else is futile? Well, it's look, you don't have long anyway. You ever hear somebody, somebody has maybe said, you really should stop smoking, or you should wear sunscreen, or you should stop this or start that. When Dad had a heart attack at 74 years and 6 months, no prior known problems at all. Always very much just a workhorse and stamina off the charts, and people would even comment on that. But he's mowing the yard. He's mowing the yard, and he collapses in the front yard mowing the yard. Mom's in the house, so she doesn't know he's laying in the front yard. And a neighbor comes in from the store. They've been out. They pull in. They look over there, and what's he doing? By this time, what's he doing? So neighbor goes over there and yells back to his wife, call 911. Surgery. So 5 bypasses. And they said, we have 4 issues, but we also saw something that could be an issue in down the road just a little bit. Do you want us to go ahead and take care of that while we're there? What do you mean? No. We kind of like to do one of these a year. Could we do 5? Could we do one a year for 5 years? Is it financially better? Yes. But then after that, my mom, and Jana will enjoy this, and Mom will enjoy this. Well, Jana will enjoy this. Mom was on it. Marlon, you don't need that later, right? Now we're going to go hard, healthy diet. Marlon Conley didn't like a hard, healthy diet. He liked a tasty diet. Okay? So, Mom was on it. I mean, on it. Good job, Mom. She was on it. And Janet's job was to, when Dad would be like, well, just one. Let me have just one. Whatever. When we were having a family meal, and Mom gets up and goes over to the counter and gets it. Janet would go up and get him stuff and sneak it to him. Let him have it. That kind of thing. And now I brought that up for a reason. The few days of life, excuse me. You're going to die. Do you ever have somebody's in that sort of situation and they go, you're going to die of something? You're going to die of something. Especially, look, I'm 74 now. Right? And I'm all cleaned out now. I told him, by the way, you don't know this until right now. I told Dad to tell you that. I don't know if he ever did. But I said, just remind her that you're all cleaned out now and it didn't get to this point overnight and it's not going to get back to that point overnight. Now, it may, I don't know. But it felt like, oh, give him something, right? People say you're going to die of something anyway. Few days of life, we only last so long, so look, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. So he said, this is futile. Well, that's not why, but he is saying the few days of life make it futile. 7:15, last passage.
I have seen everything in the world. There's a just man who perishes in his righteousness, and there's a wicked man who prolongs his life in his wickedness.
He even basically hits it himself right here as a righteous man, and as the book is, Ecclesiastes means the what? The preacher. He even hits at the preacher's life. You're thinking, I've chosen this prophet because I'm affecting eternity, even the preacher's life. You know. So we'll save the ones that we'll come back to those next week, starting in chapter 9. Now, by the way, at this rate, you're thinking, well, we're going to be through Ecclesiastes in a minute because by the end of next week, it's only got 12 chapters. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm setting a tone for going back and looking at things in specific chapters. But he's talking about the futility of life in all kinds of categories, and you've seen how many categories he's hit already. We're going to look at about 3 more categories starting next week, and then into some other stuff. So anyway, it's time to go. Had to go 90 miles an hour today.